How is the AI in Supreme Ruler 2030? If you've ever played Supreme Ruler Ultimate, you'll know exactly why this is a very hot topic of a question. So today, I thought I would check this out for you and answer some questions about the AI's capabilities, at least in the current beta build of the game. The first game I set up to test this was as China in the World 2030 scenario. I declared war on America. I set my priorities. I did everything I would do to wage a war that was bordering me in Supreme Ruler Ultimate if I didn't want to micromanage. The first question I set for myself was probably the most important one. Will the AI cross the ocean? In Supreme Ruler Ultimate, America would never traverse to another hemisphere with an invasion force ever. It was just like Hearts of Iron 3. The AI simply did not know how to cross large bodies of water. America in the Pacific could move their ships over to fight Japan, etc., and defend Taiwan. They knew how to do that, and when they did it in mass. So I'm expecting at least that level of behavior, hopefully more, considering the changes to naval pathing and the waypoint system that has been implemented. It's already been shown off by the devs that the AI knows how to traverse the ocean once given an order much better, but does the AI know how to give those orders? So as you can see, time passing by, and we don't really have any ocean crossing going on. One thing I've noticed in Supreme Ruler 2030 is that your AI, and even the enemy AI, regardless of how many troops you have or anything like that, unlike in SRU, they don't rush to put units on top of facilities as a sort of external garrison anymore. Now they slowly deploy troops, except for when you declare war, which I'm sure you might have seen happen there in the background. Then they just deploy as many troops as possible. Although that may be a player-centric thing, but we'll get to that later. This new behavior is quite weird, in fact, as the AI deploys everything, like masses of everything, leaves almost nothing in reserves. Not that this is particularly weird for war, but it takes a problem from SRU and exaggerates it. The AI in SRU was terrible at controlling your planes. Your AI would just fly your planes around in circle till they run out of fuel, the planes would explode in the air. Well, this immediately started happening to my planes. During this very short test, I actually lost more planes that were just flying in circles doing nothing, that exploded simply because they weren't good at refueling themselves, than I lost in any singular total SRU campaign that spanned decades. While looking at the planes, I also noticed something weird. The flags of a bunch of other countries started to show up. My territory was having so many incursions. At first, this looked promising. I thought America was actually invading, but they weren't. No, there was Turkey, Iran, Azerbaijan, you name it. Everybody but America was flying over my territory and incurring, and it didn't seem to have a purpose, and they would all just blow up before getting through my territory, or my own air force would fly up and destroy them. This later even went to naval units, and I saw a lot of this. I saw an Indian merchant marine sail all the way up. It looked like it was trying to pull a French going through St. Petersburg type thing, just went into my territorial waters and got blown up. And in a later test where I played as Italy, I noticed a lot of Polish troops sailing around, a lot of them being damaged. I assume they incurred through someone's territory. Now, what I think is happening here is that the diplomatic merchant marine is on. The thing that makes it so that when you buy units, it spawns at the nation where you bought it from, and then you have to sail it home or fly it home or you name it. If this is true, then the AI is so much better than ever before at taking these units and sailing or flying them, getting them moving from across the world towards their own homes. I've never seen anything like this. However, even though they can get them moving, doesn't mean they're actually good at getting them to their destinations, because in a lot of instances, I just see the units dying because they incur on other countries, whether they're flying or sailing. It's constant. More territorial incursions are happening around the world across all three of my tests, and again, we'll get to the other tests, than happen over the real-life Republic of China from the People's Republic of China. any singular day, and that's really saying something. I don't really know what's going on here. I did decide to look at that later, and in all of my tests, I had the box checked that said units arrive instantly. And if this is what I think it is, then I don't think they're actually arriving instantly. In fact, what I think is going on here is, these changes aside, which are actually pretty bad considering how much problems units just flying and sailing to their deaths will cause, I think that they redid the text for this to units arrive instantly, but this is still the diplomatic merchant marine setting in the current version. So I think while this is checked, it's the same as the default SRU merchant marine being checked, and you would have to uncheck this to get the actual result that it says you'll get in the text. That's what I think is happening here. But back to the primary question here, as you may have noticed, as you might be seeing in the background, America never sent an invasion force. If anything, some of their navy got over here, but only small bits, 1 ship, 2 ships at a time, acting pretty much independently. There was no wave of units to respond to a threat like happens in SRU, there was no theater focus, and as I'm sure you can tell already, regardless of any parameters that I set, my AI was only good at deploying units and responding to things that hit them. They didn't make any attempt to go across the ocean and engage the enemy whatsoever. I let months go by as China. Eventually, I got tired of it and I decided to check America's side. Not only was I disappointed to find that America had not sent any invasion force to me, but I found that they were hardly maintaining their naval patrols and that these really were just independent ships sailing up. There was no massive response. In fact, most of their military wasn't even deployed. They're at war with China, and they're not even taking it seriously. They're losing ships, they're losing men, they're not doing anything about it. They're not even deploying their troops. This is crazy. In SRU, the moment you go to war, the AI deploys so much, just like you saw happen for me, and they keep it deployed. And in fact, in many cases, they'll keep these units deployed to the detriment of their own finances and economy, and push themselves into debt, which at least is somewhat realistic. Here, they just don't even bother deploying. They're at a war, there's conflict, and they don't even do anything. But this is only the first test. I did test also with Australia. I decided maybe across the ocean was too much to push the AI. Let's at least test its capabilities, which in SRU, the AI definitely knows how to invade an island or something smaller near it. So this is only a roughly 100 hex trip from Australia to the Philippines. So I declared war on the Philippines, and well, it was the same result. Except worse, we were closer, but not a single one of their naval ships came up to me in several months. Nothing ventured over to me, and nothing of mine went over to theirs. I had the theater set, I had everything set, as the average player I think would probably try to do, and it was even less responsive. It was way less responsive than in SRU. The AI seems to have lost the ability to go even for much closer naval targets. If it's a Navy journey, if you have to take a ship there, they don't seem to know how to even begin doing that, unless it is a diplomatic merchant marine thing, in which case they know how to move, but they don't know how to avoid dying on the way, and they just take these terrible direct paths. So, will the AI cross the ocean? I don't even think the AI would go to a neighboring island 20 hexes away, and actually they won't, which you'll see when I answer another question later on. The second question I want to answer is, how does the AI act in war, like with troop movements on the front? So this one was with Iran. I decided to pick Iran, declare war on Iraq, do all the theater setting, everything you would do generally, and I started a war, and I let it go at a blaze. I started observing some things, and I've come to some conclusions about how the AI works here, and I can tell you it's actually noticeably different than SRU. So one thing I'd like to point out first is defensive units are just better about acting defensively. In SRU, whenever you're at war, your defensive units will be the first ones to charge in gung-ho to try to secure an enemy area. Well, naturally, this isn't a very good thing because your AA and RD just get slaughtered in SRU. And it's terrible. It inflates your death count. You lose a whole bunch of men and equipment and money. It's not good for anybody except the one that's killing all of them. And this would happen to your units and a proper AI's units that even has that higher level of AI command. Well, that doesn't happen here. I saw on both sides the AI was not charging in defensive units into any sort of situation. And in fact, I think the AI was even better about this. They responded very well. If the enemies came and incurred upon your territory, if you took something new, the AI would quickly get those defensive units up to the front to defend critical locations, not push into the area that's taken, not try to retake anything. They actually went to facilities and places of interest and sat there and acted defensively. It's absolutely incredible. I didn't think the AI would ever be possible of using defensive units defensively. Now, this is, however, offset by the fact that offensive units are just as bad about charging in by themselves to areas that they want to capture, with no assistance from defensive units such as artillery, just themselves, getting blown up by defensive fixtures and etc, etc. It's like the World War I AI that just charged infantry into artillery death traps has been ported to 2030, like the setting. And so the offensive really lost steam really quickly. And another thing I noticed about the offensive, and I noticed this across all the tests, is that the hotspots don't seem to do nearly as much as they did in SRU. You put a hotspot via a battle zone, a theater, or manually, and in SRU, the AI will react to it in some way, a notable way, unless it's across the ocean, and then it gets confused. But hotspots were very, very useful. In this game, they don't really seem like they do very much at all. The AI went where it wanted to, not where it was told to go. So overall, the AI is, I think, a little bit improved about handling itself and defending territory, yet taking territory, it is bad. Not only is it bad at figuring out what and how many troops to throw forward, be that on your side or the enemy side, but the targets the AI went for were seemingly nonsensical, with no hotspots that they really reacted to. They just went for whatever towns or whatever they figured that they could take over. They'd take that, they'd fight over it, they'd made no attempt to get to your capital. They would not offer you really any peace treaties in the middle that I saw of. However, as a side note on this topic, when I was answering the first question, playing as Australia, I did actually make peace with the Philippines in a one-off situation where I declared war without justification. World market opinion of me was really bad. It was bottom tier, outrageous. And the AI, my country, offered me the ability to let my minister go broker peace for me, and he did, came back later and said that they wanted peace if I just paid them an insignificant amount of money. Now, I've never seen anything like that up to this point, so that's at least an improvement over Supreme Ruler Ultimate that I can identify. However, when trying to negotiate peace myself, I didn't really have any success, only with that one pop-up that was in a very niche situation, and I'm not sure most players would even experience that ability unless it was also something that came up just in the middle of long-running wars as well. Although I do think you should be able to just negotiate it yourself, like in pretty much every other grand strategy game. But back onto the topic, fighting wars with just AI so that you don't have to micromanage, at least in the beta, is harder now than it's ever been. I think this is the least competent overall AI that I've ever seen try to manage a front, which means not only that this is going to be harder to control for newer players, but this means that players that know how to micromanage and are actively doing it and have the energy to do it are far more capable of overcoming enemy AI. And I might cover this more in another video, but even with the new automated battle groups, you don't really have the control you need over your units to avoid heavy micromanagement, especially with this new amount of AI control, because they don't react to hotspots, and the level of control in the battle groups actually isn't really much different than any of the other controls that you have separate. It's just more isolated. So question number 3 that I wanted to answer was, how do they utilize the new world market for units? How does the AI interact with this new system? Well, at the beginning of the game, there's nothing there, and any shorter tests, I didn't find anything there. However, when I did look on my tests with China and my test with Australia, I found loads of units here. Loads of units that started piling up. Things from all across the board. You have new things, you have old things, you have things in the middle. There's a wide variety. You have land units, you have sea units, you have air units. There is so much stuff on the world market for units. The AI seems very, very good at shoving stuff on there. I don't know how good they are about actually purchasing units from there. If my earlier hypothesis about the diplomatic merchant marine actually being on despite the text being changed to imply that it's off is correct, then potentially they're also using this a lot. But I saw this stuff in the beginning of the game before there was anything on this. That could have just been one-to-one trading, which the AI and SRU did all the time. They traded units all the time with the diplomatic merchant marine. You could see it. There's unfortunately no receipt list that I can pull up for any of the nations to see whether or not they're using direct trading to make all these unit trades that I saw them making a lot of, or if they're using the new world market. So with the evidence in front of me, I'm gonna guess that they're probably using the world market, especially because there's a lot of treaties in the way of seeing what someone else has. And I do cover this next. I didn't see anyone really getting in this time frame treaties to see each other's military units. I'm gonna guess they're actually really good about using the world market for units. They are good at selling things on it, and it does seem that they're good at buying things off of it. So I do believe that this will see a lot of use in 2030, probably more use than direct trading for units, which means this might essentially replace that feature for AI, at least mostly, throughout this game as compared to SRU. And now, for question number 4, I wanted to ask, what diplomacy does AI choose to engage in? Is it regional? Is it far-flung? Does it make any sense? I did some hopping around the world in all of my tests and checking out the other nations and seeing what treaties they had and whatnot, and I was surprised, I don't know if pleasantly, I'll leave this one up to you guys, to see that AI, they were making treaties just like in SRU, maybe not as aggressively as they did in SRU, but I'm not really sure there, but they were making treaties, and it only seemed to prioritize this early in the game those that they bordered. Russia was making treaties with things like Belarus and North Korea. America was making treaties with Canada. It was very close by. Everyone that was making treaties with someone right next to them instead of across the world. So that seems logical. That seems neat. That is probably a change. And that is also a very easy question to answer. So let's move over to question number 5, which I was very, very interested in. Does the AI manage their resources? Do they build things? How do they build things? In SRU, there was this huge problem where AI simply would not build anything that they needed. They would build way too many research centers, and they wouldn't scrap anything. Once something was there, they would keep it, and they would even probably repair it. So I decided to load in as a bunch of different nations while I was checking diplomacy and stuff as well, and look at what everybody was doing. And so America was actually building indie goods, which surprised me. In SRU, nobody ever really builds indie goods until the world runs out of indie goods, which I can tell you that did not happen. However, they were building indie goods factories, and they weren't short on them either. So I don't know why they were building them, maybe to sell them for a profit. I checked the UK as well. They were building agriculture. That's all they were building really at this point. I don't know if they had already finished building anything, because again, there's no receipts, and they were actually short on agriculture. So seeing that they were building is pretty good. So I then went over to Russia and found they were doing a lot of things, and something that was very interesting to me. Russia was building agriculture and timber. They were not short on timber. There's no reason for them to build it unless they wanted to sell it for a profit. They were short on agriculture, so that's good that they were building that. This is already way better than SRU's building for AI. I have seen no sign of a single person making a research center up to this point. Now, what really surprised me even more than the fact that there's no research centers being built and the AI is building things seemingly for profit and for need, whereas they never did this in SRU, I found Russia scrapping oil and military goods, something they built in excess of. They were actually scrapping facilities. AI can scrap buildings now. What? That's insane. Compared to SRU, that is insane. They never had that ability, and they desperately needed that ability. In terms of resource management and indie management, the AI seems vastly improved. I can't claim to fully know the logic on which they operate right now, but it's actually functional. In SRU, I wouldn't call building only research centers until the world runs out of indie goods, and then the world runs out of military goods because it runs out of indie goods, and then everyone's just fucked very functional. However, this seems pretty functional. The final question I wanted to ask, and this is where you'll see a lot of the stuff I was mentioning that you'll see later earlier as well, I loaded up Italy to try to figure out the question of, do AI still get stuck off the North Shelf of Africa? Well, I saw a lot of ships just chilling. To get them going, I decided to do a war declaration. I made sure all the perms were there, I set the priorities, I did everything, and I declared war on Malta. I figured, hey, in SRU, Italy can invade Albania and other nations next to it. They could do it just fine. In fact, they do it great. In fact, they do it so well that they become the antagonists in the World War II scenario of SRU. So surely the AI can figure out how to invade Malta, or at least move once there's a war, because in SRU, the whole point of this question is the fact that everyone in the Mediterranean, their units would just go there and stop moving and not do anything forever until war happens, and then they die. They didn't even bother repairing. They don't go reserve. Sometimes they need manual intervention. Sometimes telling them to move, they just don't. And so I decided to see if they'd move. They don't seem stuck like in SRU. However, even in the middle of a war, they really weren't putting any effort into moving. In fact, in this case, almost nothing deployed, as opposed to China, where the moment I declared war, they deployed pretty much everything. Too much that the air was dying. We had naval units patrolling, air units patrolling and dying because they chose to patrol, land units stacking up on cities for some reason. But here, no, there was nothing. Really, all I saw was a singular ship go into the coastal waters of Malta and sit there and do nothing else. So, yeah. I think they will loiter, but I'm not seeing signs of them getting stuck. I'm just seeing the earlier questions popping up again. And that's that. That's all the questions that I could realistically think of. And I put them all into this video, and I've answered them, and I've shown you some footage of this. I hope this gives you a better idea of how the AI in 2030 will perform. One thing to remember is that this is still a playtest beta, not like a open beta everyone's welcome type thing. So there's definitely still work to be done, but with a Q2 release schedule, at least at the time of recording this, I'm not quite sure how they can get the things that are worse than SRU back up to the point of SRU, and if they could get any improvements to the things that are already improved any further. You've seen it all though. Leave your comments below, let me know what you think, and if you want me to check out any other parts of the game and show them off to you, please let me know. This idea came from you guys asking me the capacity of the AI and what it did and what it would do in certain situations, so I decided to check it out for you. So again, if you want to know anything else, let me know. Maybe I've already looked at something. Make sure you check the playlist in the cards at the top right or in the description below to see if I maybe covered anything that you're interested in already, as I've been covering this game for well over a month now with videos. For now though, thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.